POV Luna Ashwood. The scent of blood hit me before I saw him. I froze on the forest path, my basket of wild herbs slipping from suddenly numb fingers. Chamomile and lavender scattered across the pine needles as that metallic tang filled my nostrils, sharp and wrong in the peaceful morning air. My wolf stirred uneasily beneath my skin, hackles rising at some primal warning I couldn't quite grasp. "Turn around," whispered my father's voice from beyond the grave. "Never approach an unknown wolf alone, Luna. Promise me." But I'd made a lot of promises to dead men, and keeping them had only left me isolated in this godforsaken cabin, miles from the nearest pack territory. Besides, I was a healer. The goddess had gifted me with hands that could mend bone and flesh, and turning away from suffering went against every instinct I possessed. Even if those instincts had gotten my family killed. I pushed through the undergrowth, following the scent deeper into the forest. The morning mist clung to the towering pines like ghostly fingers, and somewhere in the distance, a raven called out a warning that made my skin crawl. The blood smell grew stronger with each step, until it was all I could taste. Then I saw him. He lay crumpled against the base of an ancient oak, so still I thought he might already be dead. But as I crept closer, his massive chest rose and fell in shallow, labored breaths. Even unconscious and broken, he was the largest wolf I'd ever seen, easily twice the size of any pack wolf. His fur was midnight black, but silver markings traced intricate patterns along his legs and muzzle, like Celtic knots painted in moonlight. Beautiful. Dangerous. And definitely not from around here. Blood matted his thick coat, and I could see at least 3 deep gashes across his ribs where claws had raked through flesh. His left hind leg was twisted at an unnatural angle, and a gaping wound on his shoulder still seeped crimson onto the forest floor. "Jesus," I whispered, dropping to my knees beside him. "What happened to you?" As if hearing my voice, his eyes flickered open. I gasped and nearly fell backward. They weren't the golden yellow of most wolves, or even the pale blue I'd seen in some northern breeds. They were silver, the same ethereal silver as his markings, and they held an intelligence that was purely, unmistakably human. Those eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that stole my breath. Pain flickered in their depths, but underneath it was something else. Something that made my wolf press against my ribs like a caged animal desperate to get out. "Danger," she whispered. "Run." But I couldn't move. Couldn't look away. Something electric passed between us in that moment, a recognition that went deeper than logic or reason. My heart hammered against my ribs, and I felt a pull toward him that defied explanation, like a fish hook had lodged itself in my chest and was slowly reeling me in. "Easy," I murmured, the same tone I'd use with any wounded animal. But my hands shook as I reached toward him. "I'm going to help you, okay? I'm a healer." He watched me with those unsettling silver eyes as I carefully ran my hands over his injuries, assessing the damage. His body was furnace hot beneath my palms, muscles coiled tight with pain and barely restrained power. Even injured, I could feel the raw strength in him, the kind of strength that could snap my neck without effort. The kind of strength that belonged to an alpha. My breath caught. No. It couldn't be. Alphas didn't travel alone, and they certainly didn't end up half dead in neutral territory without their packs tearing the forest apart looking for them. Unless they were rogues. "Get away from him," my father's voice urged again. "Rogues are dangerous, Luna. They have nothing left to lose." But as I touched the gaping wound on his shoulder, he made a sound, not quite a whine, more like a rumble of resignation, that was so utterly broken it shattered what little common sense I had left. Whatever he was, whatever he'd done, right now he was just a creature in pain. And I couldn't walk away from that. "I need to get you somewhere safe," I told him, already mentally cataloging the supplies I'd need. "My cabin's not far. Can you understand me?" Those silver eyes blinked once, slowly. Deliberately. Oh, shit. I sat back on my heels, mind racing. A wolf that could understand human speech was either a shifter or, well, there wasn't really an or. He was definitely a shifter. Which meant he could be reasoned with, negotiated with. It also meant he was exponentially more dangerous than I'd initially thought. But it was too late to back down now. He'd seen my face, knew where I lived. If I left him here to die, and somehow he survived, he'd remember. And if I tried to run, well, even injured, those legs were longer than mine. Okay, I said, more to myself than to him. Okay. We're going to do this. But you have to trust me, and I have to trust you not to kill me the second you're back on your feet. Deal? Another slow blink. I almost smiled despite the insanity of the situation. I'm going to take that as a yes. It took me 20 minutes to fashion a makeshift travois from fallen branches and my jacket. Getting him onto it was another ordeal entirely. He had to be pushing 200 pounds, and even with his help, dragging him through the forest left me sweating and shaking by the time we reached my cabin. The barn was the only option. My cabin was too small, and if he shifted, when he shifted, I needed him somewhere I could lock him in if necessary. I'd converted one of the stalls into a makeshift medical bay months ago, complete with a cot and all my healing supplies. It would have to do. He was unconscious again by the time I got him settled on the narrow bed, which was probably for the best. It gave me time to really examine his injuries without those unnerving eyes tracking my every move. The claw marks were deep but clean, they'd heal without much scarring if I could prevent infection. The broken leg was more complicated. I could set it, but he'd need to stay in wolf form for at least a week while the bone knitted together. The shoulder wound was the real problem. Something had torn through muscle and sinew like paper, and I could see white bone beneath the mangled flesh. What the hell did this to you? I muttered, gathering antiseptic and surgical thread. I'd just started cleaning the worst of the wounds when it happened. One moment I was carefully dabbing blood away from the gash on his shoulder. The next, a human hand, large, calloused, distinctly male, was gripping my wrist with surprising gentleness. I yelped and jerked backward, nearly dropping the bottle of antiseptic. But when I looked down, it was a wolf's paw again, dark fur unmarked by human flesh. What the? I stared at his leg, then at my own hands, wondering if blood loss and exhaustion were making me hallucinate. Did you just? His eyes opened, still wolf, still that impossible silver, and fixed on my face with an expression I could only describe as apologetic. My heart pounded so hard I was surprised it didn't burst. Partial shifts were supposed to be impossible outside of the full moon. Every shifter knew that. It was one of the fundamental rules of our biology, as immutable as gravity or death. But I'd seen what I'd seen. Felt the warmth of human skin, the different texture of his grip. Who are you? I whispered. He just looked at me with those ancient, knowing eyes, and I realized that whatever I'd brought into my barn, whatever I'd sworn to heal, was far more dangerous than I'd ever imagined. And yet, as I picked up the antiseptic again and resumed cleaning his wounds, I couldn't bring myself to care. The pull I felt toward him had only grown stronger, settling into my bones like an ache I'd carried my whole life without realizing it. My father had warned me about dangerous wolves. He'd never warned me about the ones that felt like coming home. Outside, storm clouds gathered on the horizon, and somewhere deep in the forest, a howl echoed through the trees, long, mournful, and searching. I had the strangest feeling that someone, or something, was looking for my wounded stranger. And when they found him, I wasn't sure either of us would survive the reunion. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 2. 3 days later. I should have known something was wrong when I found him sitting upright. The broken leg that should have taken weeks to heal was already bearing weight. The gashes across his ribs had closed to thin pink lines. Even the devastating shoulder wound had knitted together with barely a scar to mark where bone had shown through mangled flesh. No wolf healed that fast. Not even alphas. Well, hello there, I said, setting down the breakfast tray I'd brought. Raw venison. I'd been hunting every morning to keep up with his appetite. Feeling better? Those silver eyes tracked my movement as I approached, but this time there was less pain in them and more awareness. The kind of focused attention that made my skin prickle with equal parts fear and anticipation. When he tried to stand, I held up a hand. Easy, big guy. You might feel better, but... The air around him shimmered. I stepped back, heart hammering, as his massive wolf form began to blur at the edges. Not a full shift, I could see that much, but something else entirely. Something that shouldn't have been possible. When the distortion cleared, he was still a wolf, but now I could hear him. Thank you. The voice echoed inside my head, deep and rough around the edges like whiskey over gravel. I nearly dropped the meat, pressing a hand to my temple as his words reverberated through my skull. Did you just, how are you in my head? Mind link. You're not completely human. There was a pause, and I felt his mental touch probe gently at my thoughts. Part wolf, but no pack bonds. Interesting. Stop that. I crossed my arms, trying to ignore the way his mental voice made something low in my belly tighten. Stay out of my head. My apologies. But I caught the hint of amusement threading through his words. I'm grateful. For what you've done. Most would have left me to die. Most people have better sense than I do. I sat down on the wooden stool I'd dragged in here yesterday, far enough away to feel safe but close enough to study him. What's your name? Kael. Kael. I tested it on my tongue, surprised by how right it felt. I'm Luna. Luna. The way he said my name, thought my name, sent shivers down my spine. It suits you. Like moonlight. Heat crept up my neck. Don't do that. Do what? Whatever that was. The thing with your voice. I swear I felt him smile inside my head. I wasn't trying to do anything. That's just how you affect me. My wolf stirred restlessly, drawn to something in his tone. The mate bond I'd been trying to ignore for 3 days pulled tighter, like an invisible rope connecting my heart to his. It terrified me. Where's your pack, Kael? The warmth in his mental voice disappeared. Gone. Gone how? They're just gone. His head dropped, and I caught flashes of images bleeding through our connection, wolves running, screams, blood on snow. I'm alone now. Rogue. The word hung unspoken between us, but I could feel the truth of it in his pain. A wolf without a pack was like a star without a constellation, adrift, dangerous, and utterly lost. I'm sorry, I said softly, and meant it. I knew what it felt like to lose everything. He looked up at me then, and something in those silver eyes made my breath catch. Gratitude, yes, but deeper than that. A recognition that settled into my bones like it had always belonged there. You understand, he said. You've lost them too. My family. The words came out before I could stop them. 5 years ago. What happened? Rogue attack. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Ironic, isn't it? Here I am, nursing another rogue back to health. I'm not going to hurt you, Luna. That's what they all say. But even as I spoke, I knew it wasn't true. There was something different about Kael, something that called to the deepest parts of me. The mate bond hummed between us, growing stronger by the hour, and fighting it was like trying to hold back the tide. Let me prove it to you. How? Instead of answering, he began to shift again. This time, I watched in fascination as the air around him rippled like water. His wolf form stretched and blurred, becoming more human but not quite. When the shimmering stopped, he was still predominantly wolf, but now I could see human hands at the ends of his front legs, human intelligence sharpening his features. Jesus, I breathed. How is that possible? I'm stronger than most. His voice came both through the mind link and from his partially shifted throat, creating an odd double echo. My bloodline runs deep. Alpha bloodline. I'd suspected it, but seeing this impossible partial shift confirmed it. Only the most powerful alphas could maintain dual forms, and even then, only for short periods. Which made him exponentially more dangerous than I'd thought. You're not just any rogue, are you? I asked quietly. He shifted back to full wolf form, looking suddenly exhausted. I'm just a wolf who owes you his life. But I caught the evasion, the careful way he'd avoided my question. Kael was hiding something, something big. Every instinct I had screamed at me to demand answers, to protect myself before it was too late. Instead, I found myself moving closer. You need to eat, I said, pushing the venison toward him. Build your strength back up. Luna. Just eat, Kael. We can talk more later. He studied my face for a long moment, and I felt his mental touch brush against my thoughts, not invasive this time, just a whisper of gratitude and something warmer. Something that made my wolf purr with contentment. Later, he agreed. The next morning. POV, Kael. She was humming. I listened to Luna move around her cabin through the thin barn walls, that sweet, unconscious melody drifting through the morning air like a physical caress. My wolf stretched lazily in the warmth of the sun streaming through the window, more content than I'd been in years. 5 days. 5 days since she'd found me bleeding out against that oak tree, and already I could barely remember what it felt like to be without her presence. The mate bond had settled deep in my chest, a golden warmth that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. She was mine. Every instinct I possessed screamed it, from the wolf who wanted to claim and protect her to the man who wanted to worship every inch of her soft skin. But she was fighting it, fighting me, and I couldn't blame her. If she knew who I really was, what I'd done, she'd run screaming into the forest and never look back. Later, I'd told her yesterday when she'd asked about my past. But later was a luxury I might not have. Every day I stayed put her in more danger. My enemies were still out there, still hunting, and when they found me, not if, when, Luna would become a target simply by association. I should leave. Disappear into the wilderness and never come back. But the thought of walking away from her made my chest constrict painfully. The mate bond wouldn't let me go far, anyway. I'd probably make it a mile before turning around and crawling back to her like the lovesick fool I'd become. The barn door creaked open, and her scent washed over me, wildflowers and rain, with an undertone of wolf musk that made my mouth water. She carried a basket of fresh herbs and a thermos of what smelled like coffee. "Morning, handsome," she said, and I felt rather than saw her smile. "How are you feeling?" "Like I could take on the world," I said through our link. "Your healing touch is remarkable." A blush crept up her neck, and I filed away that reaction for later. My Luna was responsive to compliments, even carefully worded ones. "It's not just me," she said, settling onto her usual stool. "You're healing faster than should be possible." "What are you, Kael?" "Really?" The question I'd been dreading. I shifted to partial form, manifesting hands so I could sign while speaking, a trick that always seemed to put humans at ease. "I told you. I'm a lone wolf. With alpha bloodline," she pressed. "And abilities I've never seen before. Wolves don't heal like you do. They can't maintain partial shifts for hours at a time. And the mind link." She trailed off, touching her temple. "It's stronger than it should be between strangers." "We're not strangers, Luna." I let some of the warmth I felt for her bleed into my mental voice. "You know that as well as I do." Her breath hitched, and I caught the spike of arousal in her scent before she could hide it. The mate bond pulsed between us, drawing tighter. "That's another thing," she said, but her voice was breathier now. "This connection. It's not normal. Nothing about us is normal. Kael." A sharp knock on the cabin door cut her off. Luna shot to her feet, every muscle in her body going tense. "Luna? You in there, honey?" I growled low in my throat, my protective instincts flaring. Male voice, middle-aged, with the confidence of someone who belonged here. But Luna's reaction told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a threat she was prepared to fight. "Who is that?" I demanded. "My neighbor," she whispered. "Joe Hendricks. He lives about 2 miles south." She was already moving toward the door, but I could smell her anxiety. "Stay quiet. And whatever you do, don't let him see you." She slipped out of the barn, and I crept to the window to watch. A grizzled man in his 50s stood on her porch, wearing a sheriff's deputy uniform and a grim expression that made my hackles rise. "Joe," Luna said, and I could hear the forced cheer in her voice. "What brings you by so early?" "Official business, I'm afraid." He removed his hat, running weathered fingers through gray hair. "We've had some trouble in the area. Rogue attacks. I wanted to make sure you were staying safe out here all by yourself." Even from the barn, I could see Luna's face pale. "Rogue attacks? How many?" "3 families in the past month. All torn apart, no survivors." Joe's voice was grim. "Whoever's doing this isn't hunting for food or territory. They're killing for sport." My blood turned to ice. No. It couldn't be. Not here, not now. "Any idea who's responsible?" Luna asked. Joe nodded, his expression darkening. "FBI's calling him the Red Moon Killer. Bastard's been cutting a bloody path across 3 states, always during the new moon. Leaves a calling card too, carves a red crescent into his victims' chests." The world tilted sideways. I watched Luna's face carefully, saw the exact moment she processed what Joe had said. Her gaze flicked toward the barn, and I caught the flash of suspicion in her eyes before she could hide it. Red Moon Killer. She knew. Somehow, she knew exactly what that name meant, and why I'd gone statue still at the mention of it. Because 5 years ago, when her family died, the authorities had given their killer the exact same name. And now she was looking at me like she was seeing me clearly for the first time. "Luna?" Joe's voice seemed to come from very far away. "You all right, honey? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," she managed, but her voice cracked on the words. Just scared, I suppose. I'll be more careful." "Good girl. Keep your doors locked, and if you see anything suspicious, anything at all, you call me right away, understand?" She nodded mutely, and I knew the exact moment she made the connection. Her family. The Red Moon Killer. The massive wolf she'd found bleeding in her forest. Luna, I tried to reach through our link, but she'd slammed up mental walls so fast and hard it was like hitting concrete. When Joe finally left, she stood frozen on her porch for a long time, staring at the barn. At me. Then she turned and walked into her cabin, locking the door behind her with a click that sounded like a death knell. I was losing her. Before I'd ever really had her, I was losing her. And the worst part was, she might be right to run. Chapter 3. For days after Joe's visit, I was losing my mind. For 4 days, I'd managed to avoid Kael entirely, staying locked in my cabin, ignoring his attempts to reach me through our mind link, pretending the mate bond wasn't slowly eating me alive from the inside out. But avoidance only worked when the object of your fear stayed put. Kael had other ideas. I discovered his first gift on my porch that morning, a perfectly arranged bundle of rare healing herbs I'd never found in these woods. Bloodroot, wild ginger, and ghost pipe, plants that grew deep in the old forest, in places most wolves feared to tread. The second gift appeared that afternoon, my broken porch step, mysteriously repaired with expert craftsmanship. By evening, I found fresh trout cleaned and filleted on my kitchen windowsill, still cold from the stream. "Damn it," I muttered, staring at the fish. He was taking care of me. Even after I'd shut him out, even knowing I suspected him of unspeakable things, he was trying to provide for me. Because that's what mates did. "Luna." His voice whispered through my mind, soft as silk and twice as dangerous. "Please. Let me explain." I closed my eyes, fighting the urge to let him in. The rational part of my brain screamed warnings about the Red Moon Killer, about the convenient timing of his appearance, about the impossibility of coincidence. But my heart, God, my traitorous heart, ached for him. "I know what you're thinking," he continued. "I know how it looks. But I would never hurt you. Never." "Then explain," I said aloud, knowing he could hear me even through the walls. Tell me why my neighbor mentioned a killer with the same name as the one who murdered my family, and you went dead silent. A long pause. Then, because I've heard that name before. Because I've been hunting the bastard who killed your family for 5 years. My knees nearly gave out. I gripped the edge of the sink, heart hammering. What? Let me shift, Luna. Let me show you what I really look like. Then I'll tell you everything. Against every ounce of common sense I possessed, I found myself walking toward the barn. He was waiting for me in partial form, human from the waist up, wolf below, like some ancient mythology come to life. But it was his face that stole my breath. Sharp cheekbones and a strong jaw covered in dark stubble. Lips that looked like they were made for sin and promises in equal measure. Silver-touched black hair that fell across his forehead in waves I wanted to run my fingers through. And those eyes. Still that impossible silver, but now I could see the pain in them, the carefully controlled fury that burned just beneath the surface. He was beautiful. Dangerous. Perfect. And looking at me like I held his entire world in my hands. Holy shit, I whispered. He almost smiled. Not quite the reaction I was hoping for. His voice, his real voice, was rough velvet over gravel, with just a hint of an accent I couldn't place. It went straight through me like aged whiskey, warming places I'd forgotten existed. Wow. I shook my head, trying to focus. Okay. Explain. Now. He shifted fully human then, and I tried very hard not to stare at the way his muscles moved beneath golden skin. Someone had thoughtfully left clothes for him, jeans and a flannel shirt that stretched across his broad shoulders. My pack was destroyed 6 years ago, he said, settling onto the cot. 17 wolves, including my parents and younger sister. The authorities called it a rogue attack, but I knew better. How? Because I tracked the bastard afterward. Followed his scent for 3 states before I lost the trail. His hands clenched into fists. He wasn't rogue, Luna. He was methodical. Organized. He targeted specific families for specific reasons. My stomach dropped. What reasons? Pack leaders who opposed him. Healers who might identify him. Witnesses who'd seen too much. He looked at me with eyes full of ancient pain. Your father was an alpha. Your mother was a renowned healer. And your brother was training to be a tracker, I finished, the pieces falling into place. They weren't random targets. No. They were threats to someone building an empire in the shadows. He stood, moving to the window. I've spent 5 years hunting this monster, Luna. When I caught his scent in these woods, I thought I finally had him. Instead, he had me. The injuries. A trap. He knew I was close, so he set up an ambush. I barely escaped with my life. He turned back to me, silver eyes burning with intensity. Finding you, saving me, it wasn't coincidence. It was fate. The mate bond hummed between us, stronger now that I could see his human face, hear his real voice. Everything in me wanted to go to him, to offer comfort for the pain I could see written in every line of his body. Why should I believe you? I asked instead. Because you can feel it too. He took a step toward me, and my breath hitched. This connection between us. Mates don't lie to each other, Luna. We can't. The bond won't allow it. He was right. I could feel his sincerity through our link, the desperate honesty bleeding through his words. Either he was telling the truth, or he was the most gifted liar I'd ever encountered. I've been alone so long, I whispered. I can't lose someone else. You won't. Another step closer. I swear to you, on my pack's graves, you won't. Then his hands were cupping my face, thumbs stroking across my cheekbones, and I was drowning in silver eyes that held promises I was afraid to believe. Luna, he breathed. My beautiful Luna. When he kissed me, the world caught fire. His lips were soft but demanding, moving against mine with a hunger that spoke of months of wanting. I melted into him, my hands fisting in his shirt as the mate bond exploded between us like lightning. This was what I'd been missing. This perfect rightness, like two pieces of a puzzle finally clicking into place. He tasted like danger and safety combined, like coming home after years of wandering. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. "Stay," I whispered. "Don't leave me." "Never," he promised. "I'm yours for as long as you'll have me." 2 weeks later. "You're glowing," Sarah observed, stirring sugar into her coffee. "Like, actually glowing." "What's his name?" I nearly choked on my latte. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Luna Ashwood." My best friend fixed me with the stern look that had made her the most feared prosecutor in the county. "I've known you for 3 years. You've never looked this happy. Ever. So spill." Around us, the small cafe buzzed with the usual weekend crowd. Normal people living normal lives, blissfully unaware that werewolves walked among them. Sometimes I envied them their ignorance. "His name is Kael," I admitted. "He's staying with me for a while." "Staying with you?" Sarah's eyebrows shot up. "As in, living together?" "Luna, you barely let people visit, let alone." "It's complicated." "It always is with you." She leaned forward, eyes sparkling with curiosity. "What's he like?" How could I explain Kael? The way he'd spent the last 2 weeks proving himself, helping repair everything around my cabin that I'd been putting off for months. The way he seemed to anticipate my needs before I voiced them, appearing with firewood when the temperature dropped or hot soup when I came in from the cold. The way he held me at night, strong arms wrapped around me like he could protect me from the world just by willing it so. "He's kind," I said finally. "And protective. Maybe a little too protective sometimes." "Protective how?" I thought about yesterday, when a traveling salesman had gotten a little too insistent about coming inside my cabin. Kael had appeared from nowhere, moving with that predatory grace that marked him as dangerous. The man had left so fast he'd forgotten his sample case. "He just looks out for me." "Good." Sarah's expression turned serious. "With all these attacks happening, you need someone watching your back. Joe Hendricks was in here yesterday, warning everyone about staying in groups after dark." My blood chilled. "More attacks?" "Another family, up in Cedar Falls. Same signature as the others." She shuddered. "I don't understand how someone can be so brutal. Joe thinks it might be some kind of cult." If only she knew how close to the truth that was. "I should get going," I said, suddenly desperate to get back to Kael. "But we should do this again soon. Maybe I'll bring Kael next time." "I'd like that. I want to meet the man who put that smile on your face." The drive back to the cabin felt longer than usual, anticipation building in my chest. 2 weeks of living with Kael had fallen into an easy routine, mornings spent working in companionable silence, afternoons exploring the forest together, evenings curled up by the fire as he told me carefully edited stories about his travels. And the nights. God, the nights were pure magic. He was a patient lover, worshipping my body like it was something precious while the mate bonds sang between us. I'd never felt so cherished, so completely claimed. I was falling in love with him. Hard and fast and completely. Which made what I found when I got home even more devastating. Kael's clothes lay in a heap by the back door, jeans, flannel shirt, and boots all soaked in fresh blood. The metallic scent hit me like a physical blow, so strong it made my eyes water. "Kael?" I called, my voice shaking. He appeared from the kitchen, wearing clean clothes but looking strangely tense. His silver eyes tracked my movement as I approached the bloody pile. "What happened?" I gestured to the clothes. "Are you hurt?" "I went hunting," he said simply. "Got a little messy." "Hunting for what?" I looked around, expecting to see deer meat or rabbit. "Where's the kill?" A pause. "Too long. It got away." My heart started pounding for all the wrong reasons. It got away? But you're covered in blood. I wounded it before it escaped. His voice was carefully neutral, but I caught the tension in his shoulders. It happens sometimes. No. No, no, no. Wounded prey didn't bleed this much, and experienced hunters like Kael didn't let injured animals suffer. Everything about this was wrong. What kind of animal? I pressed. Does it matter? There was an edge to his voice now, a warning that made my wolf whimper. But I'd lived with predators my whole life. I knew the difference between a protector and a killer. And standing there, looking at enough blood to fill a bathtub, I realized I might not know Kael as well as I thought. Show me, I said quietly. Luna. Show me where you hunted. Show me the trail. Silver eyes met mine, and for just a moment, I saw something flicker in their depths. Something that looked almost like guilt. You don't trust me, he said. I want to. The truth scraped my throat raw. But there's enough blood here to kill a man, Kael. And no body to show for it. The silence stretched between us, heavy with accusations I didn't want to voice and explanations he couldn't give. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky the color of fresh blood. And somewhere in the distance, I could swear I heard sirens. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 4. POV, Kael. The sirens were getting closer. I stood at the kitchen window, watching Luna's face in the reflection as she stared at my blood-stained clothes. The fear in her eyes was a knife to my gut, twisting deeper with every second of silence that stretched between us. She was remembering. Putting pieces together. And soon, too soon, she'd realized that the monster she'd been hunting had been sleeping in her bed for 2 weeks. Tell her, my wolf demanded. Tell her everything before she finds out another way. But I couldn't form the words. Couldn't bear to watch the love fade from her eyes when she learned what I really was. Kael? Her voice was small, uncertain. The sirens. Probably nothing, I lied, though my enhanced hearing had already picked up the radio chatter. Multiple victims, excessive violence. Red Moon signature. Another family. Another dead end in my hunt for the bastard who'd started this war. The irony was bitter as poison. I'd been tracking the real Red Moon killer for 6 years, and now Luna thought I was him. If I hadn't been so consumed with revenge, so blinded by the need for blood, maybe I could have protected her from this suspicion. Maybe I could have protected her from myself. I should check on the neighbors, I said, grabbing my jacket. Make sure everyone's safe. It was a coward's retreat, and we both knew it. But I needed time to think, to figure out how to explain 5 years of carefully orchestrated violence without losing the only thing that mattered anymore. Without losing her. The forest welcomed me like an old friend, pine needles soft beneath my bare feet as I shifted mid-run. My wolf form was faster, stronger, better suited for the kind of thinking that required blood and moonlight. 6 years ago. The memory hit me like a physical blow, dragging me back to that night when everything changed. I was in the pack house office, going over territory maps with my father, when the screaming started. By the time we reached the common area, half my pack was already dead, throats torn out, chests carved with those obscene red crescents. Run, my father roared, shoving me toward the back exit as a massive silver wolf materialized from the shadows. Find the others. Protect. The silver wolf's jaws closed around his throat before he could finish. I watched my father die. Watched my mother fall trying to protect the cubs. Watched my little sister Emma try to crawl to safety with both back legs shattered, blood streaming down her face. And I ran. I fucking ran while my pack, my family, my responsibility, was slaughtered like livestock. The shame of it still burned, even now. An alpha's first duty was to his pack, and I'd failed them in the most fundamental way possible. 17 wolves dead because their alpha was a coward. But I'd learned. Oh, how I'd learned. The next 5 years were a blur of hunting and killing, tracking down every wolf who'd been involved in my pack's destruction. Some begged. Some fought. Some tried to run, just like I had. None of them succeeded. I became everything they'd feared, a ghost in the night, a shadow with silver eyes and claws that never missed their mark. The Red Moon Killer's network of rogues and corrupted pack wolves fell one by one, until I was close enough to smell the bastard's trail. And then Luna found me, bleeding and broken, and showed me what I'd lost in my quest for vengeance. Humanity. She made me remember what it felt like to protect instead of destroy. To create instead of tear down. To love instead of hate. But love built on lies was just another kind of poison. I was so lost in memory that I almost missed the scent. Silver musk and old blood. Rage and corruption twisted together into something that made my wolf snarl with recognition. Him. The Red Moon Killer was here. In these woods. Close enough to touch. My vision went red. 5 years of hunting, of sleepless nights and endless guilt, and he was right here. Probably watching Luna's cabin. Probably planning to add her to his collection of corpses. Over my dead body. I followed the trail deeper into the forest, every sense hyper-tuned for the slightest sign of movement. The scent was fresh, maybe an hour old. He'd been circling the area, learning the terrain. Planning. The trail led to a small clearing where the trees opened up to reveal scattered bones and the remains of a campfire. Recent kills, judging by the smell. Small animals mostly, but there was something else underneath. Human. My stomach lurched. The bastard had been hunting people here, right under Luna's nose. How many had died while I played house with my mate, pretending I could have a normal life? A twig snapped behind me. I spun, claws extending, but the clearing was empty. Just shadows and moonlight and the lingering scent of death. But I felt eyes on me. Watching. Evaluating. He knows, I realized. He knows I'm here. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it filled me with cold satisfaction. Let him come. Let him try to take what was mine. I'd show him what 6 years of rage could do. But as I turned to leave, something caught my eye. Scratched into the bark of a massive oak were 3 symbols I recognized. A red crescent moon. Luna's pack symbol. And underneath both, carved deep enough to weep sap. Soon. My blood turned to ice. He wasn't just hunting randomly anymore. This was personal. He was coming for Luna. I ran back to the cabin like the hounds of hell were on my heels, shifting mid-stride and barely pausing to grab clothes from the porch. Luna was in the kitchen when I burst through the door, and the relief of seeing her safe and whole nearly brought me to my knees. Kael? She looked up from the tea she was making, and I saw the exact moment she registered my expression. What's wrong? You look like you've seen. We need to leave. The words came out harsher than I intended. Now. Tonight. What? Why? She set down her mug, fear creeping into her voice. What happened out there? Tell her, my wolf urged again. Tell her everything. But how could I explain that I'd brought death to her doorstep? That my selfish need to have her had painted a target on her back? The killer, I said instead. He's here. In these woods. And he knows about you. Her face went white. How do you? I found his campsite. He's been watching the cabin, Luna. Learning your routines. I crossed to her, gripping her shoulders gently but firmly. We can be packed and gone in 20 minutes. I know places he'll never find us. I'm not running. Her chin lifted in that stubborn way I'd learned to love and fear in equal measure. This is my home, Kael. My family built this cabin. I won't be driven out by some psychotic. Your family is dead because of him. The words exploded out of me before I could stop them. You want to join them? She flinched like I'd slapped her, and immediately I regretted my tone. But there was no time for apologies, no time for gentle explanations. Luna, please. You have to trust me on this. He's not just some rogue looking for an easy kill. This is personal for him. Planned. I touched her face, memorizing the feel of her skin beneath my palm. I can't lose you. Not when I've just found you. Something in my voice must have convinced her, because she nodded slowly. Okay. But I want answers, Kael. Real answers. No more evasions or half-truths. You'll have them, I promised. All of them. Once we're somewhere safe. It was a lie, of course. There was nowhere safe from what I'd brought into her life. But maybe I could get her far enough away that she'd have a chance when the truth finally caught up with us. 20 minutes later, we were loading the last of her essential belongings into her truck when I caught another familiar scent on the wind. Pack wolf. Moving fast. Coming straight for us. I stepped protectively in front of Luna, every instinct screaming danger as a massive brown wolf burst from the tree line. But instead of attacking, he shifted mid-run, revealing a tall, broad-shouldered man with dark hair and Luna's same green eyes. Marcus? Luna dropped the bag she was holding, shock written across her face. What are you doing here? How did you? Luna, thank God. The man, Marcus, was breathing hard, like he'd run miles in wolf form. I've been trying to reach you for hours. Your phone's been going straight to voicemail. I studied him carefully, cataloging threats. Pack enforcer, judging by his build and scars. Strong enough to be dangerous, but his body language screamed exhaustion rather than aggression. Still, I kept myself between him and Luna. Marcus, this is Kael, Luna said, apparently remembering her manners. Kael, this is Marcus Thorne. We grew up together. Marcus's eyes fixed on me with laser focus, and I saw the exact moment he scented what I was. His nostrils flared slightly, and his hand drifted toward what was probably a concealed weapon. Alpha. Unmated. Dangerous. But he kept his thoughts to himself, instead turning back to Luna with an expression that made my chest tighten with dread. Luna, we need to talk. Privately. His voice was carefully neutral, but I caught the undercurrent of barely controlled emotion. Something's happened. Something bad. What kind of something? She asked, but I could already see her putting pieces together. Marcus, you're scaring me. He looked at me again, clearly debating how much to say in front of a stranger. Whatever was coming was pack business, and I had no right to be here for it. Except that Luna was my mate, and her pain was my pain. The Silverstone pack, he said finally. They're all dead, Luna. Every last one of them. The color drained from her face. What? When? How many? 43 wolves. Including the Alpha family. His voice cracked slightly. It happened 3 days ago. We just found them this morning. Luna swayed, and I caught her arm to steady her. The Silverstone pack had been allies to her family, I realized. Friends. Maybe even extended family. The Red Moon Killer, she whispered. Marcus nodded grimly. Same signature. Same brutality. But this time he left something else. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a blood-stained piece of paper. Even from where I stood, I could smell Luna's scent on it, faint but unmistakable. He left a message, Marcus said, holding out the paper with hands that shook slightly. About you, Luna. He knows where you are. And he's coming. The world tilted sideways as Luna took the paper with trembling fingers. I watched her face as she read, saw the exact moment terror replaced shock in her eyes. What does it say? I asked, though part of me already knew. She looked up at me with eyes full of tears and accusations and a dawning understanding that cut deeper than any blade. It says he's been watching me, she whispered. Waiting for the right moment. And that my protector. She looked at Marcus, then back at me. My protector is exactly where he wants him. The trap was closing around us. 6 years of hunting, and I'd walk straight into his web. Worse, I'd brought Luna with me. Chapter 5. POV, Luna. The paper trembled in my hands as I read the killer's message again, each word burning itself into my memory like a brand. Sweet Luna, daughter of the moon. Your protector walks among shadows, but shadows always return home. The silver wolf knows what he's done. Soon, you will too. The crescents must be complete. RM. My legs gave out, and I sank onto the porch steps, the blood-stained note fluttering to the ground. 43 wolves. An entire pack wiped out in a single night, and somehow it was connected to me. Luna? Marcus was beside me instantly, his hand warm on my shoulder. What does it mean? What protector? I looked up at Kael, standing frozen in the shadows beyond the porch light. His face was a mask of carefully controlled emotion, but something flickered in those silver eyes: guilt, recognition, fear. He knew. Somehow, he knew exactly what this meant. I don't understand, I whispered, but even as I said it, pieces were clicking together in my mind. Kael's sudden appearance in my woods. His impossible healing speed. The way he'd gone silent when Joe mentioned the Red Moon Killer. The bloody clothes with no prey to show for them. Tell me about the Silverstone massacre, I said to Marcus, my voice steadier than I felt. Every detail. Marcus glanced uncertainly at Kael, then back to me. Luna, maybe we should. Please. I stood, wrapping my arms around myself against the sudden chill. I need to know. He sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. We found them at dawn. The Alpha and Luna in the pack house, throats torn out. The rest scattered throughout the territory, some in their homes, others in the forest like they tried to run. My stomach lurched. Children? All of them. His voice was flat, professional, but I caught the tremor underneath. The killer doesn't discriminate, Luna. Age, gender, nothing matters to him. He just destroys. The red crescents? Carved into every chest, post-mortem. Clean cuts, like he took his time. Marcus's jaw clenched. But this time was different. The brutality was extreme. Even for him. I felt Kael's gaze boring into me, but I couldn't look at him. Couldn't face whatever truth was written in those silver eyes. Different how? I asked. It looked personal. Like the killer knew them, had some kind of grudge. Marcus moved closer, lowering his voice. Luna, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. My throat felt like sandpaper. Okay. Have you noticed anything strange lately? Anyone new in the area? Any. His eyes flicked meaningfully toward Kael. Any unexpected visitors? The question hung in the air like smoke, heavy with implications I didn't want to face. Marcus suspected something. Suspected someone. Suspected Kael. Marcus, I began carefully, what exactly are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that 43 wolves are dead, and their killer knows your name. His voice hardened. I'm suggesting that you're isolated out here with no pack protection, and maybe, just maybe, that's not an accident. You think I'm in danger? I think you've been in danger since the moment your family died, and now that danger has found you again. He stepped closer, his bulk blocking Kael from view. The council wants you in protective custody until we catch this bastard. Somewhere safe, with guards who can. No. The word came out sharper than I intended. I'm not running, Marcus. Not again. Luna, be reasonable. This isn't about pride or... It's about home. I gestured toward my cabin, toward the life I'd built from the ashes of everything I'd lost. This is all I have left of them. Of my family. I won't let some psychotic killer drive me away from the only place I belong. Marcus's expression softened. I understand that. But... she's not going anywhere. Kael's voice cut through our conversation like a blade, low and deadly and absolutely final. Both Marcus and I turned to stare at him as he stepped into the light, and what I saw there made my breath catch. He looked dangerous. Predatory in a way I'd never seen before, silver eyes glowing with an inner fire that spoke of barely leashed violence. This was the alpha I'd sensed but never fully witnessed, the wolf who could command through presence alone. "Excuse me?" Marcus straightened, his own dominance rising to meet the challenge. "I said she's not going anywhere." Kael moved with that fluid grace that marked him as something more than human, positioning himself slightly in front of me. "Luna is under my protection now." "Your protection?" Marcus's voice dripped with skepticism. "And who exactly are you to make that claim? I don't see any pack bonds here. No mating marks. No legal authority whatsoever." The air between them crackled with tension, two alphas sizing each other up for a fight that would end badly for everyone involved. I needed to defuse this before it escalated beyond words. "Kael." I moved to his side, placing a hand on his arm. The muscle beneath was coiled tight as a spring, ready for violence. "It's okay. Marcus is trying to help." "No." His eyes never left Marcus's face. "He's trying to separate us. Take you away from me." The possessiveness in his voice should have annoyed me. Instead, it sent heat spiraling through my belly. "That's not happening." "Look, Romeo," Marcus said, his patience clearly wearing thin. "I don't know what your story is, but Luna's safety comes first. She's the last of the Ashwood bloodline, which makes her important to more than just your ego." "You think I don't know that?" Kael's voice dropped to a growl that raised the hair on my arms. "You think I haven't spent every waking moment for the past 3 weeks thinking about her safety?" 3 weeks. But we'd only been together for 2. Marcus caught the discrepancy too. 3 weeks. How long have you been watching her? The question hit the air like a physical blow. I felt Kael tense beside me, and suddenly I was seeing him through Marcus's eyes, a powerful, unmated alpha with no pack bonds, no history, and suspicious timing. "It's not what you think," Kael said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Then explain it." Marcus crossed his arms. "Explain how you knew to be here. Explain why a wolf of your obvious strength is playing house in the middle of nowhere instead of claiming territory. Explain why the Red Moon killer suddenly knows Luna's exact location after 6 years of her living in anonymity." Each word hit like a hammer blow. I stared at Kael, willing him to deny it, to provide some logical explanation that would make all this suspicion disappear. Instead, he went completely still. "Kael?" I whispered. "Tell him he's wrong." The silence stretched between us, heavy with accusations and secrets and a growing dread that settled in my stomach like ice. "I can't," he said finally. Marcus stepped forward, hand moving to the weapon at his hip. "Luna, step away from him. Now." "No." But even as I said it, doubt was creeping in like poison. 3 weeks. How long had he been watching me before I found him bleeding in the forest? "Luna." Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. "Think about it. Really think. The timing, the location, the fact that he just happened to be mortally wounded close enough for you to find him. Does any of that seem like coincidence to you?" It didn't. God help me, it didn't. "I can explain," Kael said desperately, reaching for me. I flinched away from his touch, and the hurt that flashed across his face was like a knife to my chest. "Then explain," I said. "Right now. No more evasions, no more half-truths. If you want me to trust you, tell me why Marcus thinks you're connected to the killer." Kael looked between us, silver eyes wild with something that might have been panic. Then his shoulders sagged in defeat. "Because I've been hunting him," he said quietly. "For 6 years. And my hunt led me here, to you." The admission hit me like a physical blow. "You used me." "No. Never that." He took a step toward me, desperation written in every line of his body. "Finding you, falling for you, that was real, Luna. That was never part of any plan. But being here was." My voice sounded hollow to my own ears. You came here because of him. Because of the killer. Yes. The single word shattered something inside me. All of it, the rescue, the recovery, the growing love I'd felt blooming in my chest, had been built on a lie. Luna, Marcus said softly. Come with me. Please. Let me take you somewhere safe while the council deals with this. For a moment, I was tempted. The familiar comfort of pack protection, of letting someone else make the hard decisions. It would be so easy to walk away from this mess, from the complications of loving a man who might be exactly what Marcus suspected. But then I looked at Kael, really looked at him, and saw not the dangerous predator Marcus feared, but the wounded wolf I'd found broken and bleeding in my forest. Whatever he was hiding, whatever secrets lay between us, the mate bond hummed with certainty. He would never hurt me. Give us a minute, I said to Marcus. Please. Luna. 1 minute. Then we'll talk about protective custody and council jurisdiction and all the rest. I met his eyes steadily. But first, I need to hear his side. Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but something in my expression must have convinced him. Fine. 1 minute. But I'll be right here, and if he makes one wrong move. Understood. He stepped back, but I could feel his attention focused on us like a laser. Whatever Kael had to say, he'd better make it count. Talk, I said simply. Kael's hands clenched at his sides. My pack was destroyed 6 years ago by the Red Moon Killer. I've been hunting him ever since, following his trail across 3 states. 2 months ago, I picked up his scent in these woods. 2 months? The timeline was getting worse, not better. I'd been tracking him, learning his patterns, waiting for the right moment to strike. His voice was barely above a whisper. But then I found evidence that he was targeting you specifically, and everything changed. My blood chilled. What kind of evidence? Photos. Maps. A detailed dossier on your daily routine. Silver eyes burned with intensity. He's been planning this for months, Luna. Maybe longer. I realized I had to get close to you, had to find a way to protect you without revealing why. So you let yourself get hurt. The pieces were falling into place now, creating a picture I didn't want to see. You staged your own injuries to manipulate me into helping you. Not staged. Never that. Pain flickered across his features. The injuries were real, he set a trap, and I walked right into it. But when you found me... He swallowed hard. It was like the goddess herself had handed me a second chance. A way to protect you that wouldn't require explanations I couldn't give. Because you knew I wouldn't trust you if I knew the truth. Because I knew you'd run if you realized he was coming for you. His voice cracked with emotion. And I couldn't let that happen. Couldn't let you face this alone. Marcus's radio crackled to life, breaking the spell of Kael's words. Unit 23, we've got another body. Adult female, same signature. Location is... Not now, dispatch, Marcus growled, but the damage was done. Another body. Another red crescent. The killer was still out there, still hunting, and we were standing here arguing about trust and truth while people died. Time's up, Marcus said firmly. Luna, decision time. Come with me, or stay here with a man who's admitted to lying to you from day one. I looked between them, Marcus, solid and dependable and representing everything safe and familiar, and Kael, dangerous and complicated and possibly the only thing standing between me and a madman's obsession. I need to think, I said finally. Give me tonight. Both of you. Tomorrow morning, I'll give you my answer. Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but something in my tone stopped him. Fine. But I'm not leaving you alone with him. I'll be in my truck at the end of your drive, and if anything feels wrong, you call out. Agreed. He shot one last warning look at Kael, then stalked toward his vehicle. I waited until I heard his truck door slam before turning back to the man who'd turned my world upside down. Inside, I said quietly. We have a lot more to talk about. But as we climbed the porch steps, I caught sight of something that made my blood freeze. Kael's jacket, the one he'd grabbed when he'd burst through the door earlier, had fallen from the porch railing. And spilling from the inside pocket, glinting in the moonlight, was the handle of a knife. A knife with something carved into the metal. While Kael went ahead into the cabin, I bent and picked up the weapon with trembling fingers. Even in the dim light, I could make out the design etched into the blade. A red crescent moon. My heart stopped beating. The knife was still wet with blood. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 6. POV, Luna. The knife felt like ice in my hands. I stood frozen on the porch, staring at the red crescent etched into the metal while my world tilted sideways. Fresh blood coated the blade, dark and thick in the moonlight. The same signature that had been carved into my parents' chests. Into my brothers'. Into 43 innocent wolves just 3 days ago. And it was hidden in Kael's jacket. Luna? His voice drifted from inside the cabin, warm and concerned. Everything okay? No, I thought desperately. Nothing is okay. But I couldn't form the words. Couldn't reconcile the gentle man who'd held me through nightmares with the monster who wielded this blade. The mate bond hummed between us, insisting on his innocence even as evidence mounted against him. Coming, I managed, sliding the knife into my back pocket before pushing through the door. Kael was building up the fire, his movements fluid and graceful in the flickering light. He'd shed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves, revealing the corded muscles of his forearms. When he looked up at me, those silver eyes were soft with affection. "You look pale," he said, crossing to me with that protective instinct that had drawn me to him from the beginning. "Are you feeling all right? I know tonight has been. We need to talk." The words came out harsher than I intended. Something flickered across his face, too quick for me to identify. "Of course. What's on your mind?" I pulled the knife from my pocket, watching his expression carefully as I set it on the kitchen table between us. "This was in your jacket." He went completely still, silver eyes fixed on the blade. For a heartbeat, I saw something that might have been panic flash across his features. Then his face smoothed into careful neutrality. "Where did you find that?" "Your pocket. It fell out when your jacket dropped." I crossed my arms, fighting the urge to step back from him. "It's covered in blood, Kael. Fresh blood. And that symbol. I can explain." "Then do it. Because right now, all I can think about is Marcus's warning and 43 dead wolves and the fact that this knife matches every description I've ever heard of the Red Moon Killer's signature weapon." He moved around the table, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Luna, you have to believe me. This isn't what it looks like." "Then what is it?" "I found it." The words came quickly, tumbling over each other. "Earlier today, when I was scouting the forest. There was a body, a rogue, already dead. This was buried in his chest." My heart hammered against my ribs. "A rogue?" "Male, maybe 30. He'd been dead for hours when I found him." Kael's voice was steady, convincing. I pulled the knife out, thinking I could use it as evidence. Proof that the killer had been in the area. It made sense. Perfect, logical sense. And yet, why didn't you tell me? When Marcus was here, when we were talking about the killer, why didn't you mention finding a body? Because I knew how it would look. His hands cupped my face, thumbs stroking across my cheekbones with infinite gentleness. "I knew what conclusions you'd jump to if you saw me with the murder weapon. Just like you're doing now." The mate bond pulsed between us, warm and reassuring. Everything about his touch, his tone, his expression screamed sincerity. But doubt gnawed at me like acid. "Show me," I said. "What?" "The body. If there's really a dead rogue in the forest, show me." Something shuddered in his eyes. "Luna, you don't want to see." "Yes, I do." I stepped back, breaking contact with him. "If you're telling the truth, if you really found this knife the way you claim, then prove it." Take me to the body. It's not safe. Not with the killer still out there. Then we'll bring Marcus. He can verify. No. The word came out sharp, almost violent. No pack enforcers. No council involvement. This stays between us. Red flags went up in my mind. Why? Because I don't trust them with your safety. His voice softened, becoming the intimate tone that never failed to make my knees weak. Because the mate bond between us is sacred, and I won't let anyone use it against us. He was doing it again. Deflecting my questions with declarations of love, using our connection to cloud my judgment. Part of me recognized the manipulation for what it was. The rest of me was drowning in silver eyes and promises I wanted desperately to believe. The blood on the knife, I said weakly. If the rogue was dead for hours. Was still wet when I found him. Whoever did this hadn't been gone long. Kael moved closer again, and I let him. Luna, I know how this looks. I know what your rational mind is telling you. But your heart knows the truth. His hands framed my face again, and this time I leaned into the touch despite myself. What truth? I whispered. That I love you. That I would die before letting anyone hurt you. That everything I've done, every lie, every half-truth, has been to protect you from a monster who wants you dead. The words hit me like a physical caress, warming places that had been cold since my family died. The mate bonds sang in response, flooding my system with chemicals that made thinking clearly nearly impossible. Kael. I should have told you about hunting him from the beginning. Should have trusted you with the truth about why I came here. His forehead pressed against mine, breath warm against my lips. But I was so afraid of losing you. Of watching you look at me the way you're looking at me right now. How am I looking at you? Like you're trying to decide if I'm a man or a monster. The raw vulnerability in his voice shattered my defenses. This was Kael, my Kael, the man who'd held me while I cried, who'd built up my fire and mended my broken porch step. Who'd made me feel safe and cherished for the first time in 6 years. You're not a monster, I said, the words coming from someplace deeper than logic. Aren't I? His smile was bitter. I've killed, Luna. More than once. More than I care to count. I've tracked rogues across 3 states and put them down like rabid dogs. To find the one who murdered your family. And yours. His hands slid into my hair, fingers tangling in the strands. Every wolf I've killed brought me one step closer to the bastard who destroyed both our lives. That knife is just another piece of evidence in a hunt that's consumed me for 6 years. It was a beautiful lie, wrapped in just enough truth to make it believable. And standing there in his arms, feeling the mate bond pulse between us like a living thing, I wanted to believe it more than I'd ever wanted anything. Show me tomorrow, I said finally. The place where you found the body. I need to see it. If that's what it takes for you to trust me, then yes. He pressed a soft kiss to my forehead. But Luna, whatever you see, whatever evidence we find, remember this moment. Remember how you feel right now. How do I feel? Safe. Loved. Home. He was right. Despite everything, the suspicions, the bloody knife, Marcus's warnings, being in Kael's arms felt like coming home. The mate bond hummed with contentment, drowning out the small voice in my head that whispered warnings about predators and manipulation. I love you, I whispered against his lips. And I love you. More than my own life. When he kissed me, it was with the desperate hunger of a man who thought he might lose everything. His mouth moved against mine with an urgency that spoke of need and claiming and the kind of forever promises that lived in fairy tales. I melted into him, letting him back me toward the bedroom while his hands roamed my body with reverent touches. Every caress sent fire racing through my veins, every kiss dissolved another layer of doubt. This was right. This was meant to be. The goddess herself had brought us together, and no amount of suspicion or circumstantial evidence could change that fundamental truth. In the soft darkness of my bedroom, he worshipped my body with a patience that took my breath away. Every touch was a benediction, every kiss a promise. When he finally joined us together, the mate bond exploded between us like lightning, sealing something that felt older than time itself. Afterward, I lay in his arms while he traced lazy patterns on my bare shoulder, both of us lost in the afterglow of completed bonding. The connection between us hummed with contentment, warm and golden and utterly unbreakable. "No more lies," I murmured against his chest. "Whatever happens from here, we face it together. Honestly." "No more lies," he agreed, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. I should have known it was a promise he'd already broken. The next morning, I woke to the sound of running water and the scent of bacon cooking. Kael's side of the bed was still warm, which meant he'd only been up for a few minutes. The mate bond pulsed with quiet satisfaction, and I stretched like a cat in a sunbeam, muscles deliciously sore from our night together. Everything felt different now. Clearer. The doubts that had plagued me seemed ridiculous in the morning light. Kael loved me. The bond between us was real and sacred and not something that could be faked or manipulated. I pulled on his discarded shirt from the night before, breathing in his scent as I padded to the kitchen. He stood at the stove wearing nothing but jeans, hair mussed from sleep and my fingers. When he heard me approach, he turned with a smile that made my heart skip. "Good morning, beautiful." "Morning." I wound my arms around his waist from behind, pressing a kiss between his shoulder blades. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep. Too busy thinking about last night." His free hand covered mine where they rested against his stomach. "About us." "Good thoughts, I hope." "The best." He turned in my arms, capturing my mouth in a kiss that tasted like coffee and promises. Though I should probably get dressed before Marcus decides to check on us. The mention of Marcus brought reality crashing back. He's still out there? His truck was there when I checked an hour ago. Kael's expression darkened. He doesn't trust me. Can you blame him? From his perspective, you're an unknown alpha with suspicious timing and questionable explanations. From his perspective, I'm competition. There was an edge to Kael's voice that hadn't been there before. He wants you, Luna. Has for years, judging by the way he looks at you. I blinked in surprise. Marcus? No, that's not, we're just friends. Are you sure about that? Completely. Marcus is like a brother to me. He's protective because he knew my family, not because he has romantic feelings. Kael studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. If you say so. But I still don't like him being here. He's trying to help. He's trying to separate us. The possessiveness in his tone should have bothered me. Instead, it sent heat spiraling through my belly. But it doesn't matter. Nothing can break the bond between us now. He was right. What we'd shared last night had changed everything, cementing our connection in ways that went deeper than law or pack politics. We were mated now, truly mated, and that meant something in our world. I should get his jacket to him, I said, gesturing toward where Kael had draped it over a chair. He'll probably want to head back soon. Let me. Kael moved toward the jacket, but I was already reaching for it. I've got it. My fingers brushed against something in the inside pocket, not the knife, which we'd left on the table, but something else. Something that crinkled like paper. Curious, I pulled it out. It was a newspaper clipping, yellowed with age and worn soft around the edges. The headline made my blood freeze. Ashwood Pack Massacre leaves 5 dead. Below the text was a photograph I recognized all too well, my family at last year's summer festival, all of us laughing at some joke my brother had told. My parents stood behind us, their hands on our shoulders, looking proud and happy and utterly alive. The date on the clipping was from 6 years ago. Just days after they died. My hands began to shake as I turned the paper over. In faded ink, someone had written notes in the margins. Details about our daily routines. Information about where I went to school. A detailed map of our territory with escape routes marked in red. And at the bottom, in handwriting I was starting to recognize. Find the daughter. She's the key to everything. The world tilted sideways. I stared at the clipping, reading the notes again and again while my heart hammered against my ribs. This wasn't something Kael had picked up recently. This was old. Planned. Researched. He'd been hunting me for 6 years. Luna? Kael's voice seemed to come from very far away. What's wrong? You look like you've seen. I held up the clipping with trembling fingers, watching his face cycle through surprise, guilt, and resignation in rapid succession. You lied to me, I whispered. About everything. Luna, I can explain. No. The word came out broken, raw. No more explanations. No more lies. Because suddenly I understood. The convenient timing of his injuries. The way he'd known exactly how to appeal to my healer instincts. The careful seduction, the perfectly timed revelations, even last night's desperate lovemaking. All of it had been planned. Orchestrated. A trap 6 years in the making. And I'd walked right into it. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 7. POV, Luna. The newspaper clipping fluttered to the floor as my legs gave out. I sank onto the kitchen chair, staring at my family's smiling faces scattered at my feet while my world disintegrated around me. 6 years. He'd been planning this for 6 years, watching me, learning my patterns, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And I'd made it so easy for him. Find the daughter. She's the key to everything. The words echoed in my mind like a death knell. Key to what? What could I possibly have that was worth 6 years of patient stalking? Luna. Kael's voice was careful, controlled. Let me explain. Get out. The words came out as barely a whisper. What? Get out. The scream tore from my throat, raw and primal. Get out of my house. Get away from me. He didn't move. If anything, he stepped closer, hands raised in that same peacekeeping gesture that had fooled me so completely. Luna, please. You don't understand what you're seeing. There's more to this. I understand perfectly. I stood on shaking legs, backing toward the kitchen counter where I kept my knives. You've been hunting me. Stalking me. Planning. God, what were you planning? To protect you. His silver eyes burned with desperate sincerity. Everything I've done has been to protect you. From who? Yourself? A bitter laugh escaped me. You have notes about my family's routines, Kael. Details about our territory, our defenses. That's not protection, that's reconnaissance. It was research. I needed to understand what happened to them, how the killer got close enough to stop. I pressed my hands to my ears, but I couldn't block out his voice, couldn't escape the lies that kept pouring from his lips. Just stop. No more lies. No more manipulation. I want you gone. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. I'm not leaving you alone. Not when he's still out there. Who? Who's still out there? Hysteria was creeping into my voice. The Red Moon Killer? The boogeyman you've been using to justify 6 years of stalking? Luna. Or maybe you mean yourself. The pieces were falling into place now, creating a picture so horrific I could barely process it. Maybe the Red Moon Killer and my stalker are the same person. The silence that followed my words was deafening. That's not, he began. Get out. I grabbed a carving knife from the counter, holding it between us with both hands. Get out before I call Marcus. Before I call the council. Before I tell them exactly what I found in your jacket. For a moment, something wild and desperate flashed across his face. Then his expression smoothed into careful neutrality. Fine. But I'll be watching, Luna. Whether you want me to or not. He pulled on his jacket, movements sharp with barely controlled emotion. When the real killer comes for you, and he will, remember that you sent away the only person who could have saved you. The door slammed behind him hard enough to rattle the windows. I stood frozen in my kitchen, knife still clutched in my shaking hands, while the magnitude of my situation crashed over me in waves. I was alone. Completely, utterly alone, with a potential serial killer who knew every inch of my territory and every detail of my daily routine. And I was mated to him. The bond between us pulsed with pain and confusion, Kael's emotions bleeding through despite my attempts to block them out. Hurt. Anger. And underneath it all, something that felt disturbingly like satisfaction. Like everything was going according to plan. The local library's computer was ancient, but it had internet access and, more importantly, it was public. Safe. If Kael was watching me, he'd have to be careful about approaching me here. My fingers shook as I typed Ashwood Pack Massacre into the search engine. I'd avoided researching my family's death for 6 years, too wrapped up in grief and survivor's guilt to want the details. Now I wished I'd been braver. The first article that popped up was from the Cascade Herald, dated 6 years and 3 months ago. Brutal attack leaves pack decimated. Local authorities are investigating the savage killing of 5 members of the Ashwood pack in what appears to be a territorial dispute gone wrong. Alpha James Ashwood, his mate Sarah, and their 2 sons were found dead in their home Sunday morning, with evidence of a violent struggle. I scrolled past the basic facts I already knew, searching for details I'd been too young and traumatized to hear at the time. The coroner's report. Witness statements. Physical evidence. There, buried in the 4th paragraph. Witnesses reported seeing a massive wolf with distinctive silver markings fleeing the scene. Game Warden Tom Phillips described the animal as the largest wolf I've ever encountered, easily twice the size of a normal pack wolf. The creature appeared to be injured, leaving a blood trail that went cold at Willow Creek. My heart stopped beating. Silver markings. Massive size. Injured. The description fit Kael perfectly. With trembling fingers, I opened a new search tab and typed Red Moon Killer Wolf description. Dozens of articles appeared, spanning 6 years and 3 states. I clicked through them systematically, looking for physical descriptions of the killer. Witnesses describe a wolf of unusual size and coloring, with silver markings. The creature appeared almost supernatural in its size and strength. Silver-marked wolf, estimated weight over 200 pounds. Distinctive metallic markings on legs and muzzle. Every description matched. Every single one. The massive wolf that had slaughtered my family was the same creature that had been cutting a bloody path across 3 states. The same creature I'd found bleeding in my forest. The same man I'd made love to last night. I was going to be sick. Stumbling toward the library bathroom, I barely made it to a stall before my stomach emptied itself violently. When the retching finally stopped, I slumped against the tile wall and tried to process what I'd learned. Kael was the Red Moon Killer. My mate, was the monster who'd murdered my parents, my brothers, my entire pack. He'd carved crescents into their chests and left them to rot while I was away at college, blissfully unaware that my world was ending. And then he'd spent 6 years hunting me like prey. But why? What could I possibly have that was worth all this? I was nobody special, just a healer with a small cabin and no pack connections. I had no money, no territory, no political influence. She's the key to everything. Key to what? I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and dialed the only person I could trust. Marcus? My voice came out as a broken whisper. Luna? What's wrong? You sound. He's gone. Kael's gone, and I found things. Evidence. I need you to come back. Please. I'm already on my way. I've been sitting at the end of your drive for the past hour, trying to decide whether to respect your wishes or drag you out of there anyway. Relief flooded through me so intensely I nearly started crying. Thank you. I'll meet you at the cabin. Luna? Are you somewhere safe right now? The library in town. But Marcus. I took a shuddering breath. I think you were right. About Kael. About all of it. A long pause. We'll sort it out when I get there. Stay put until I arrive, understand? Understood. But as I hung up and prepared to leave the library, something made me pause. One more search. One more piece of the puzzle that might help me understand why this was happening. I typed Ashwood Pack Bloodline into the search engine. The results were sparse, most Pack genealogy wasn't public record. But I found an old article from a werewolf heritage site, discussing notable bloodlines in the Pacific Northwest. The Ashwood line traces back to the original Scottish settlers, with documented abilities in healing and rare instances of prophetic dreaming. The family maintained careful breeding records, as their bloodline carried genetic markers associated with enhanced supernatural abilities. Prophetic dreaming. I'd always had vivid dreams, but I'd never considered them supernatural. Just an overactive imagination combined with too much stress. But what if they were more than that? What if I'd inherited some kind of foresight ability that I'd never learned to control? What if that's what made me valuable? I was still staring at the screen when a shadow fell across the keyboard. Find anything interesting? I looked up to see Kael standing behind me, silver eyes fixed on the computer screen with an expression I couldn't read. He'd been so quiet I hadn't heard him approach, a skill that would be very useful for someone who made a living as a killer. How did you find me? My voice came out steady despite the terror coursing through my veins. I know you, Luna. Better than you know yourself. He moved around to the empty chair beside me, settling in like he had every right to be there. You're a researcher when you're scared. You gather information before you act. Smart of me, considering what I found. And what did you find? I turned the screen toward him, showing the article about the Ashwood bloodline. That you've been hunting me for a very specific reason. What is it, Kael? What do you want from me? He studied the screen for a long moment, then looked at me with something that might have been regret. The same thing everyone else wants from you, apparently. His voice was soft, almost gentle. Your gift. What gift? You know what gift. Silver eyes bored into mine. The dreams, Luna. The visions that show you things before they happen. The reason you went away to college the weekend your family died, even though you'd planned to stay home. My blood chilled. That was coincidence. Was it? Or did you dream about blood and screaming and running away? The memory hit me like a physical blow. I had dreamed about that, a nightmare so vivid and terrifying that I'd called my roommate and begged to come visit her family that weekend instead of going home like I'd planned. A nightmare that had saved my life. How did you know about that? Because I've been watching you for 6 years. Because every major decision you've made, every time you've changed plans or avoided danger, it's been because of a dream. He leaned closer, voice dropping to that intimate tone that had seduced me so completely. You can see the future, Luna. And there are people who would kill for that ability. People like you? People like the man who really killed your family. Before I could process that statement, before I could demand explanations or call for help, the library's front door exploded inward. Marcus burst through, weapon drawn, eyes scanning for threats. When he spotted us sitting calmly at the computer terminal, confusion flickered across his face. Luna? I thought you said. The rest of his words were cut off as Kael moved faster than humanly possible, crossing the distance between them in a blur of motion. There was a brief struggle, the sound of something heavy hitting the floor, and then Marcus was on the ground with Kael's hand around his throat. Well, Kael said conversationally, not even breathing hard. This is awkward. I stared at them both, paralyzed by the speed of what had just happened. Marcus's eyes were wide with shock and pain, but he was alive. For now. Let him go, I whispered. I don't think so. Kael's grip tightened slightly, and Marcus made a choking sound. See, Marcus here has been a problem from the beginning. Always interfering, always asking questions. Kael, please. Did you know he's been in love with you since high school? Silver eyes met mine across the space between us. Oh yes, I can smell it on him. Desire and longing and the kind of desperate need that makes men do stupid things. That's not relevant? You're right. It's not. He stood, hauling Marcus up with him like the man weighed nothing. What's relevant is that he's seen too much. Heard too much. And now he's going to have to die. The casual way he said it, like he was discussing the weather, sent ice through my veins. No. I stood as well, hands clenched into fists. You're not killing anyone else. Anyone else? Kael tilted his head, genuinely curious. Luna, I haven't killed anyone. Yet. You killed my family. You've been killing people for 6 years, carving crescents into their chests. Have I? The question hung in the air between us, loaded with implications I didn't want to examine. But before I could respond, before I could demand explanations, Marcus managed to rasp out a single word. Run. Everything exploded into chaos. Marcus drove his elbow back into Kael's ribs, breaking free for just an instant. It was enough time for him to shout, Luna, run. Get to the council. Tell them. Kael's fist connected with his temple, and Marcus crumpled to the floor, unconscious but breathing. Well, Kael said, straightening his jacket like nothing had happened. That was unfortunate. I backed toward the emergency exit, hands shaking. You're insane. Am I? Or am I the only one telling you the truth? He stepped over Marcus's still form, moving toward me with predatory grace. 6 years, Luna. 6 years I've been protecting you from the real killer. 6 years I've been hunting the bastard who destroyed both our lives. You are the killer. No. The word was soft, absolute. I'm not. Then who? The lights went out. Emergency lighting flickered on a second later, casting everything in hellish red. And in that crimson glow, I saw something that made my blood freeze. Marcus was gone. Where his unconscious body had been lying just seconds ago, there was nothing but empty floor. Too late, Kael whispered, and I heard something in his voice I'd never heard before. Fear. He's here. The library's back door exploded outward in a shower of splinters and glass. Through the opening stepped a figure I recognized from 6 years of nightmares, massive, silver-marked, with eyes that burned like molten gold. But it wasn't Kael. It was Marcus. And he was smiling. Chapter 8. POV, Luna. Time fractured into razor-sharp fragments of impossibility. Marcus, my childhood friend, my protector, the man I'd trusted with my life, stood in the wreckage of the library's back door, silver light dancing along markings I'd never noticed before. His familiar brown eyes had shifted to burning gold, and when he smiled, I saw fangs that belonged in nightmares. Hello, Luna. His voice was the same warm baritone I'd known for years, but now it carried undertones that made my wolf cower. I'd been waiting so long for this moment. Behind me, Kael moved with predatory grace, positioning himself between Marcus and me. The air around him shimmered with barely contained power, but for the first time since I'd known him, he looked afraid. 6 years, Marcus continued, stepping through the debris like he was walking through a garden. 6 years of playing the devoted family friend. The concerned pack enforcer. The man who just wanted to keep little Luna safe. My legs gave out. I sank to the floor, understanding crashing over me in nauseating waves. You killed them. You killed my family. I liberated them. His smile widened, showing more teeth than any human mouth should hold. From a father who was poison. From a legacy built on lies and murder. That's not true. Oh, Luna. Marcus laughed, and the sound was like breaking glass. You have no idea what your precious daddy was really like, do you? Kael's growl rumbled through the air, low and threatening. Don't listen to him, Luna. Get out of here. Now. But I couldn't move. Couldn't think past the horrible certainty settling in my bones. Marcus. It had been Marcus all along. Tell her, Kael, Marcus said, tilting his head with mock curiosity. Tell her what her father did to you. To your mate. To your unborn child. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. I looked at Kael, really looked at him, and saw something shatter behind his silver eyes. Kael? My voice was barely a whisper. He closed his eyes, shoulders sagging in defeat. When he opened them again, the man I'd fallen in love with was gone. In his place stood someone hollow and broken and utterly lost. Your father killed my mate, he said quietly. POV, Kael. The words tasted like ashes in my mouth. 7 years of careful planning, of patient hunting, of building the perfect trap, and it was all crashing down around me. Not because Luna had discovered the truth, but because I couldn't bear to let Marcus tell it for me. Her name was Elena, I heard myself say, though part of me screamed to stop. She was carrying our first child. 3 months along. Luna's face went white as parchment. Kael, don't. Your father wanted our territory. Ancient hunting grounds that had belonged to my pack for generations. The memory was a knife in my chest, sharp and unforgiving. He came to us under a flag of truce. Said he wanted to negotiate, to find a peaceful solution. Marcus laughed from across the room. Oh, this is delicious. Tell her about the dinner, Kael. Tell her how welcomed you made the great James Ashwood feel. I wanted to kill him. Wanted to tear his throat out and watch the light fade from those golden eyes. But Luna deserved the truth. After everything I'd done, she deserved that much. We hosted him for 3 days. Elena insisted on cooking his favorite meals, preparing the guest room with our finest linens. The words came easier now, like poison finally being drained from a wound. She was so excited about the baby. About the future we were going to build. Kael, please stop. Tears were streaming down Luna's face, but I couldn't. The floodgates had opened, and 7 years of suppressed agony came pouring out. The last night, he asked Elena to show him our ancestral shrine. Said he wanted to understand our connection to the land before making any deals. My hands clenched into fists. She went with him. Alone. Trusting. And? Luna whispered. He raped her. The words came out flat, emotionless. Brutally. Then he slit her throat and carved that fucking crescent into her chest while my child died inside her. Luna made a sound like a wounded animal. But that wasn't enough for dear old Dad, Marcus chimed in cheerfully. Tell her the rest, Kael. Tell her how he made it look like a rogue attack. How he convinced everyone that you'd failed to protect your own mate. He burned the shrine to cover his scent. Slaughtered 3 of my pack members and arranged their bodies to make it look like territorial raiders. I looked at Luna, watching her face crumble as she processed what her father had really been. Then he stood at Elena's funeral and offered his condolences for my tragic loss. No. Luna shook her head violently. No, that's not, my father wouldn't. Your father was a monster, sweetheart. Marcus's voice was syrup over broken glass. A psychopath who hid behind pack politics and a charming smile. How do you think I found him so easily? Monsters recognize each other. The pieces were falling into place behind Luna's eyes, and I watched her childhood die in real time. That's why you came here, she said to me. Not to protect me. To get revenge. Yes. The word was barely a breath. The newspaper clipping. The notes about my family's routines. You were planning this for 6 years. Yes. You were going to kill me. I closed my eyes, unable to look at her face anymore. I was going to make you love me first. The way your father made me love Elena before he destroyed her. When I opened them again, Luna was staring at me like I was something she'd found rotting in the woods. I wanted you to feel what I felt. The betrayal. The heartbreak. The absolute devastation of losing everything you cared about. But then you actually fell for her, Marcus said, clapping slowly. Didn't you, Kael? The great revenge plan derailed by genuine emotion. How inconvenient. He was right. Somewhere between Luna's gentle healing touches and her soft laughter, between holding her while she slept and watching her face light up when she saw me, the plan had become impossible. I'd fallen in love with the daughter of my enemy. And it was destroying me. I couldn't do it, I admitted, the words scraping my throat raw. I tried to leave. Tried to stay away. But the mate bond made you weak, Marcus finished. Just like it made me weak when I fell for her mother. Luna's head snapped up. What? Marcus grinned, and there was nothing human in the expression. Didn't I mention that part? Your mother and I were mates, Luna. True mates, bonded by the goddess herself. His golden eyes glowed with malevolent joy. Until your father stole her away with pretty lies and pack politics. POV, Luna. I couldn't breathe. The revelations were coming too fast, each one more devastating than the last. My father, a rapist and murderer. Kael, my mate who'd planned to kill me. Marcus, obsessed with my mother and apparently insane. She chose him over me, Marcus continued, circling us like a predator playing with wounded prey. Said pack stability was more important than the mate bond. That duty came before love. His voice turned bitter. So I decided to show her what duty really cost. You killed her to punish her? The words came out as a sob. I killed them all to free you from their poison. Don't you see, Luna? You're the only pure thing to come out of that corrupted bloodline. The only one worth saving. Kael shifted slightly, putting himself more firmly between Marcus and me. She's not part of your sick game, Marcus. This is between you and me now. Oh, but she is part of it. The most important part. Marcus's smile was all teeth and madness. Because you love her now, don't you, Kael? Just like I loved her mother. Just like you loved Elena. Understanding crashed over me like ice water. He wants to take me away from you. The same way my father took my mother from him. And then kill me while you watch, Kael confirmed grimly. Just like your father killed Elena while I was forced to witness it. A perfect circle of revenge, Marcus said approvingly. Poetry in motion. I looked between them, two broken men who'd been twisted by my father's cruelty into something monstrous. One who'd planned to murder me in cold blood. Another who'd slaughtered my entire family to possess me. And I was the prize they were fighting over. Enough. I stood on shaking legs, surprised by the steadiness of my own voice. This ends now. All of it. Both men looked at me with identical expressions of surprise. Luna, Kael began. No. I held up a hand, power I'd never known I possessed flowing through my veins. You've all made your choices. Chosen revenge over healing, hatred over love. Chosen to let my father's sins poison everything they touched. Luna, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. I looked at Marcus with eyes I knew were glowing with their own inner light. You want to punish me for my father's crimes. Make me pay for choices I never made. Then I turned to Kael. And you want to use me as a weapon against a dead man. Turn our mate bond into just another tool for revenge. That's not, he stepped toward me, but I backed away. Well, here's my choice, I said, power crackling around me like electricity. I choose neither of you. I ran. The library's front door was my target, but I made it exactly 3 steps before Kael caught my arm. Luna, wait. You can't just. His words were cut off as Marcus slammed into him from behind, sending them both crashing into a bookshelf. Ancient hardcovers tumbled around them as they fought, more animal than human in their desperation. I bolted for the exit, adrenaline giving me speed I'd never known I possessed. Behind me, the sounds of their battle grew increasingly inhuman, growls and snarls and the wet sound of claws meeting flesh. The parking lot was empty except for my truck and Marcus's patrol car. I fumbled for my keys, hands shaking so badly I could barely get them in the ignition. The engine turned over on the 3rd try, and I gunned it toward the road, gravel spraying behind me. In the rearview mirror, I saw the library's windows explode outward in a shower of glass and timber. They were still fighting. Good. Maybe they'd kill each other and save me the trouble. The forest road back to my cabin was a blur of green and shadow. I drove faster than was safe, taking curves that should have sent me careening into the trees. But luck, or maybe those prophetic instincts Kael had mentioned, kept me on the asphalt. I had to get home. Had to grab my emergency bag and get as far away from this nightmare as possible. Maybe head south, find a pack that would take in a lone wolf with healing skills. Start over somewhere Marcus had never heard of and Kael would never think to look. The cabin appeared through the trees like a sanctuary, and I'd never been so glad to see anything in my life. I slammed the truck into park and ran for the front door, already mentally cataloging what I'd need to take. Cash from the coffee can under my bed. The herbs that were hardest to replace. My mother's jewelry. The photo of my family from before everything went wrong. I had the door unlocked and was pushing inside when I heard the first howl. Then the second. And third. I froze in my doorway, blood turning to ice as the forest around my cabin erupted with the sounds of wolves. Big ones, judging by the bass notes in their calls. A lot of them. No, I whispered. No, no, no. But even as I spoke, they began emerging from the treeline. Massive wolves with silver markings just like Kael's, their eyes glowing in the fading daylight. I counted 6. 8. 10. They formed a perfect circle around the cabin, cutting off any possible escape route. I backed through my doorway, slamming it shut and throwing the bolt. As if a simple lock could keep out a pack of werewolves who'd been planning this for God knows how long. Through the window, I watched them sit in perfect formation, patient as death. Waiting. A knock at the door made me jump so hard I nearly screamed. Luna? Kael's voice, calm and controlled despite whatever battle he'd just won. I think it's time we finished our conversation. I pressed my back against the far wall, trapped like prey in my own home. Go away. I'm afraid I can't do that. The doorknob turned despite the lock, metal groaning as supernatural strength forced it open. Not when we've come this far. The door swung wide, revealing Kael silhouetted against the dying light. He was disheveled, clothes torn and stained with blood that might not have been his own. But he was alive. Which meant Marcus was probably dead. Where is he? I asked. Gone. For now. Kael stepped inside, closing the door gently behind him. He'll be back, though. Men like Marcus don't give up easily. Men like you mean? Something flickered across his face. Yes. Men like me. He moved toward me with that fluid grace I'd once found so attractive, and now I could see it for what it really was. The predatory movement of an apex hunter stalking wounded prey. I'm sorry you had to learn the truth that way, he said softly. I'd hoped to tell you myself. When the time was right. When would that have been? Before or after you murdered me? I told you. I couldn't go through with it. The moment I saw you in that forest, bleeding and broken and trying to save the very wolf who'd come to destroy you. He shook his head. Everything changed. But not enough to tell me the truth. No. Not enough for that. He was close now, close enough that I could see the genuine regret in his silver eyes. I'm a coward, Luna. I wanted to have you and my revenge both. Keep you in ignorance while I figured out another way to honor Elena's memory.